Well, the G7 continues in Alberta today. So Prime Minister Carney announced new support for Ukraine's defense. This as he met with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on the sidelines of the summit. And he's set to meet later today with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. CTV's Colton Praill joins us live with the latest. Colton, you are in Banff, but just get us up to speed with what has happened at the G7 so far today.
It's been a very, very busy day for the Prime Minister. He's already met one-on-one with the head of NATO, along with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who, a reminder, he invited personally to this G7. And as you pointed out, he announced $4.3 billion worth of new supports for Ukraine, along with a massive increase in sanctions on Russia. The Canadian government and the Foreign Affairs Minister framing this as the biggest sanctioning on Russia since the start of the war in Ukraine, since 2022. We're talking about 200 new vessels being sanctioned, nearly 80 new individuals, just shy of 40 enterprises, all being sanctioned. We also saw the UK announce new sanctions on 30 additional targets as well. Primarily, these are targeting what's known as Russia's shadow fleet. Essentially, these are either individuals who have helped them game the system to avoid some export levies, or these are fleets, particularly that are getting coal and oil and other crucial minerals and natural gases out of Russia to allow them to fuel their economy during the wartime. So massive, massive new sanctions. When it comes to that $4.3 billion that was announced, I should mention $2.3 billion of that is in the form of a loan, and so that's guaranteed money off Russian assets, frozen Russian assets, and Canada's reimbursed from the interest of those frozen Russian assets. $2 billion of that is new money, but it's new money that was already put in the supplementary estimates that were voted on in Parliament. This is part of the just shy of $9 billion that the Prime Minister announced a couple of weeks ago when he talked about hitting that NATO 2% spending target. This is a part of that. It will count towards that 2% target, and it'll be about $2 billion that goes towards helping buy drones, ammunitions, and armored vehicles for Ukraine that will then be donated to the country.
And Colton, speaking of those rather large financial commitments, there's also this. U.S. President Donald Trump left last night, so there's not going to be any more talk about, U.S.-Canadian tariffs today.
No, there's not. Now, we do know later this week that officials on the Canadian and American side are planning to meet again. We heard that yesterday in the press conference with Dominic LeBlanc and Kirsten Hillman saying that they're likely to meet the USTR, possibly Scott Bessent, the trade secretary, later on this week. Bessent is still at the summit at this point in time representing the U.S. It's not clear if he's going to stay the entire day. We don't know that yet, but he is representing Donald Trump this morning. But certainly without the president there, it is hard to continue those conversations. We do know that there is that new 30-day timeline that was agreed to yesterday to try to find a deal. There's still a lot of questions as to what a deal could look like, if it's going to be a framework or a full decision in 30 days' time. Will it or won't it include tariffs? The president was very firm yesterday that he is, in his words, a tariff man. It is still the baseline for him. He also commented after the news that there was a 30-day timeline on Air Force One. And again, he was asked about Canada. He was asked about comments around the 51st state. He demurred on the 51st state element, saying that's a Canadian choice. But he then did go on to say if they don't choose that, then Canadians are going to have to pay tariffs, and they're also going to have to pay a higher price for the Golden Dome if they want to be a part of that. And so, this is progress. This isn't to diminish the progress that is being made or the Canadian officials have denoted. It is still to point out, though, both sides see a differing base option as the solution, or a different foundation of that solution. On the American side, it still seems as though tariffs are likely to be included, while Canadian officials say the goal is to remove tariffs, but they have to see what is the best deal they can achieve.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we still have so much more to talk about. We'll get to that when we talk to you later, and hopefully including a little bit of scuttlebutt on the eye roll from Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. All right, live from Banff, CTV's Colton Praill. Thanks a lot.